Alright, hey guys, welcome to Samco Workshop. We got a lot to unpack in this one. This is a decision that I actually had to make myself because I had a Colorado ZR2 on order and I canceled it to buy a Gladiator Rubicon. But these were many of the things that went through my mind on this, and we're going to dive down because this here, you know, we just recently, about a week or two ago, we did the ZR2 versus the Raptor Ranger. Those two are very close in what they are, and both very purpose-built for the same thing, and that one made a lot of sense. But these two are a very tough decision because of what they're capable of and where they kind of shine, where the Raptor Ranger may not so much in the slower going, not the desert racing, but more the crawling, the mud, the misery, the that kind of stuff. Like I said, that Raptor Ranger is an amazing vehicle. I'm not taking anything away from it. It'll do a lot of great stuff. But when it comes to the nasty beat your truck up kind of stuff, I think these two are a better fit for that. Where that Raptor Ranger is kind of more like a Porsche. It's an amazing machine, but not quite with all of its electronics and its techs and its sensors and its live valve shocks and things like this. I think that there's a lot of room for things to kind of go wrong when you start getting into mud and crap like that and everything there. So for me, these two were the ones that are a very interesting comparison against each other. They're so different, yet so alike. It's pretty interesting. So let's dive into it. Here's all my information on here, and it's just so much that I couldn't like label everything. There's just too much here to unpack. So, but let's dive in here. So, price wise, $49K basically to start for a Colorado ZR2, $62 MSRP for the Gladiator Rubicon. However, just keep in mind that you can get this down. So we might even call this like a 47. And we might call this a 48. If they do the same kind of numbers when they run deals on this stuff, you know, at the end of the year. So, I mean, realistically, they're not too far off on their price. They are on MSRP by, you know, 12 grand MSRP. Take that into consideration if you don't know how to buy a vehicle. If you have no idea how to buy a vehicle the right way and save money and negotiate, then that's going to be a big factor for you. If you know how to do that stuff and you can get the right deals, which are not hard to do, you're really looking at about a 47 here and about a 48 here is about where you're at. So they're very similar kind of things in price, I think. But again, this you could probably work that deal. Right now you can't either because they're on a no sale again right now because they're waiting for more parts to come in on the ZR2s. So like I said, it's kind of right now they're both a little tricky. But my point being is that I bet by October time frame you'll be able to get this for this kind of price and this for this kind of price. That's my assumptions because these are priced real high. So they don't sell quite as fast during the early part of the year. They dump the sales on at the end of the year. It comes down. You can negotiate. So take it for what it's worth. Here you got a 2.7 four-cylinder turbo. Here you got a 3.6 naturally aspirated V6. If I weigh the pros and cons of each one of these, they about average out to... Can't make my mind up, really, when it comes down to it. And we'll talk about some of that stuff here at the end. We'll get into some more details on that when we get into some personal things. Right now we're talking facts. But, so you got a 3.6 in here. This 3.6 only producing 285 horsepower, 260 foot-pounds of torque. That's not that good compared to this 310 and 430, which is amazing. But there's a canceller out in there as well, too, because like I said, you got to weigh all the considerations. But horsepower-wise, torque-wise, straight-up fun factor on the road, being able to take off past people, whip through down dirt roads and swing the rear end around, there's no doubt that Colorado crushes the Gladiator in that aspect. Both are going to come with 33-inch tires, stock, okay? That's what you're getting on it, stock. The Gladiator can tow the ZR2 can tow 6,000 pounds. The Gladiator in an automatic can tow 7,000 pounds. You know, and I didn't even know that. I actually made a towing comparison video that I just put out this morning, actually, and everything I saw said that the Gladiator was only able to tow 4,500 pounds. Somebody corrected me on it and showed me that it's actually, that's for the manual, but the automatic can tow 7,000. I had to dive really deep to find that information. It's pretty crazy, because if you type in Gladiator Rubicon tow, every single page every page, every spec bulletin says 4,500 pounds, but he is right. It does tow 7,000 for the automatic. I actually had to pull that video because of that, because I won't give out wrong information. So I killed that whole video. I'll remake it, but I had to kill the video. So we know that that tows 7,000 pounds, so that's another 1,000 pounds there. Wheelbase on them, you're 131.4 inches there, 137, so you're about 6 inches longer in the wheelbase between the actual wheels. That's going to affect your breakover angle, so that is something to keep in mind. That is a pretty significant difference there in the wheelbase. But that 6 inches gives you 6 more inches. Well, you know, when we look down here at the length, 213 matches that wheelbase to 218. Again, we're, you know, 5 inches longer there, 6 inch more wheelbase, and it's going to apply that extra length comes in somewhere, and it usually comes in the form of cab space. There's a lot of extra room in that cab of this, so keep that in mind too. So again, everything washes back and forth. Ground clearance numbers, we got 10.7 here, 11.6 here, so we're almost 1 inch higher ground clearance. Sorry, birds. We're almost 1 inch taller ground clearance on the Gladiator. Approach angle 38.3 compared to 44.7. So the Gladiator's kind of killing it here in the ground clearance and approach angle. Breakover angle 24.6 versus 20.9 because of that 6 inch longer wheelbase. That's where the Colorado is going to beat it in that. And the departure angle, we got 25.1, 26. They're not too super different, but the Gladiator Rubicon does have those guards on there, so you can drag that rear end over anything and not hurt anything at all. So it's kind of a nice feature. But those, you know, so realistically, numbers-wise on the approach and departures and that kind of stuff, they're close enough that it doesn't really apply to me, especially down here. Now, if I lived out west and I was rock crawling, it's definitely going to be the Gladiator. It's going to beat that because of that, mainly that approach, 44.7 degrees. That's almost 45-degree approach angle. That is insane. And that's with stock tires. That's insane. So it does some pretty amazing things. Weight-wise, they're about the same. You know, your 4,950 pounds there and your 5,000 pounds here. They're about the same weight. Water fording, 28 inches for is the water fording thing it says in the manual on the ZR2, and we got 31.5 on the Rubicon. Both of those numbers can be corrected pretty good, but it is interesting to see that we basically got 3.5 inches more on this one, and they're both on the same size tires. Probably has to do with the diff breathers and things like that, where Jeep really puts them up high. Then the ZR2 is only a short little stubby one with the valve on the top of it. But again, those are easily corrected for the most part, unless this is due to you know, electrical connections behind the wheel wells that I haven't been able to dive into this and see. But the water fording on a Jeep is fantastic. Now here you got IFS, independent front suspension, running Multimatic DSSVs. The suspension on that ZR2 crushes the suspension on a Rubicon Gladiator. It straight up destroys it in every kind of level. However, the Rubicon's got a solid front axle. That offers way more articulation, where IFS on that Colorado, this wheel can only do this, this wheel can do this. Okay, that's it. On that Jeep, they can do this. And they can really articulate in there tremendously. So you get a lot of articulation with that solid front axle. But you give up the great suspension and you end up with monotube shocks. They're not great, they're not bad, but they are not going to be as fun to drive at speed as this vehicle here is. There's no doubt about it. This vehicle is definitely more go fast than this one is, but this one is more rock crawler, mud capable, things like that. But they're both so close. They both do both so well, but you got to take those into considerations. You start beating up and destroying these DSSV shocks, they're expensive to replace. The monotube shocks on a Gladiator, not expensive to replace. All things got to be considered. Front and rear lockers on here, electric, they're nice. You got rock rails on it coming straight from the factory. Here you got front and rear lockers as well too, and you got rock rails coming from the factory. Hey guys. Sorry. And but here you get a sway bar disconnect. Remember how we talked about that articulation of that wheel? Disconnect that sway bar, and now that articulation is even more in that front end because you're no longer linked together doing this. You get that full, so that's a very nice feature, that sway bar disconnect, especially for in the rocks, even in the mud where you start dropping into those ruts. It's nice to get that wheel up there and get traction on the high side. and let that one drop in to get traction in the bottom. So that sway bar disconnect is a very handy thing. It comes in really, really good. Now, when we get into the crawl ratios, remember here, we got 310 horsepower, 430 foot-pounds of torque. That's not a whole lot more horsepower. Okay, you're going 285 to 310. It's not all that important, but the torque is only, it's 150 or 180 foot-pounds more torque. It's amazing amount of torque you're getting here versus what we're getting out of the naturally aspirated engine. However, and that's great on the road, and that's great in 4 high, and that's great for going fast, but you only get a 42-to-1 crawl ratio in the ZR2. So when you put that thing in 4 low, you're basically trying to be in tractor mode and be very controlled and precise, climb thing, and not spin wheels and let that traction work and let that motor work. It's a lot harder with 42-to-1 and 42-to-1 crawl ratio and 3.42 gears in this. This vehicle has to strain much harder in 4 low to do that kind of stuff. Where this one, we got an 84-to-1. That's a double. Literally, it's a double the crawl ratio in 4 low, and we got 410 gears. So this thing becomes a pure tractor, and you have so much power when you are in 4 low for such controlled and precise stuff, where this one will do it, but it's a lot of a battle. Also, because of that, if you go putting 35s on here, which most people are going to try doing on both of these vehicles, I have 35s on mine, you put 35s on there, which is easy on this vehicle to do on the Gladiator. You're going to do some mods to get 35s on the ZR2. At the minimum, you are going to need more offset wheels and some fender chopping and things like that to be able to put a 35 on it, or a lift. Okay, but you can do it, and people do, but it requires a little more work to get a 35 on there. But then you come into the issue of the 342 gears trying to turn over 35s on a regular basis versus a 410 gear is easy to turn over those 35s. So that's something that matters in there too. You got to take that into consideration. There is not much aftermarket for this for that Colorado yet. I just watched a video today. Downtime. I think it was Downtime. He's got a ZR2, and he just took his to California to Deviate. Had Deviate built him, first I've ever seen for it, but custom bumpers for the front and the rear with a winch in there. Beautiful setup. Amazing setup. So the aftermarket support is getting here. We already got Level Up. We got some of the suspensions, lifts and things coming for this vehicle. Those are already there, so it's a beautiful thing. The thing that does worry me about that, again, we'll save that for opinion stuff here in a second, but there's not a tremendous amount of aftermarket available yet for the Colorado. It is coming, it's just not here yet. When it comes to aftermarket for the Gladiator, there's so much. You could build an entire Gladiator and never once buy a part from Mopar or from Jeep to do it. The thing's got so much aftermarket support, it's not funny. Then the other factor is, remember that this vehicle is the only open air experience of the whole thing. The ability to remove the freedom panels, the ability to remove the whole back area, the whole roof, to be able to take the doors off. Not that a lot of people are going through all that stuff to do it, but the fact that you can is fun. Our freedom panels are out of that vehicle quite often. We pop the things, throw them, we set them right here. We just set them right on the front porch of our house. We go drive, we run to the post office, we go up and get ice cream. We do stuff. It's so nice. But pop the freedom panels off, roll the windows down, all 4 windows down, and it's just peaceful as can be cruising around. It's a beautiful thing. So there is a fun factor to that open air experience there that you cannot get out of this truck. Take it for what it's worth. Some it will matter, some it will not. So, and then the other thing too, you get a manual option. You can have a stick shift in the Gladiator, you cannot in the Colorado. If that's important to you, you only got one choice. Width-wise, 76.3 without the mirrors, not counting the mirrors on either one of them. 76.3 width, 73.8. So you're about 1.5 inches difference here, or right in that neighborhood, almost 2, or what would that be here? We'd be, about 2.5 inches difference here between the two of them, as far as how wide they are. Not too ridiculously crazy, and we are 5 inches longer on the Gladiator than we are on there. So this one's a little wider, this one's a little longer. Wash. It's it's the same thing. They cancel each other out. Now when we get into the opinion part of this, okay, because that's all factual. Everything we have here is pure fact. My opinion wise, where this has that fun factor that's amazing, it also comes as a cost of being a louder ride. The solid front axle on this might wander for a little bit more. We got to have a little more driver input in it. Where this one, basically, you just, you set your hand on top of the wheel and it just keeps going straight. In the Gladiator, you put your hand on top of the wheel, but there's a little bit more of this to stay on the road the right way that you want to. You get a little, there's some trade-offs. But the road manners and the quietness and that horsepower and stuff on the road make this a big improvement over this. However, with that said, that solid front axle, that articulation that you get from that, the robustness of that solid front axle, the crawl ratio, the 410 gears, take this to a whole level off-road that this not quite getting to. So like I said, everything is kind of a back and forth wash. When it comes to reliability, I'm going to put them both about equal. And the reason I say that is a simple one. This one has been tried, true, and proven, and I know there's a lot of Jeep haters out there on how the reliability is no good because my uncle's cousin, sister's best friend's girlfriend's brother-in-law had a Jeep and it had a problem once. Okay, we get a lot of that kind of crap, but statistically, 14 million 3.6 Pentastars out there with this transmission. Everything about this thing has been basically flawless for most people. Okay, the complaints are ridiculous complaints of wind noise, wanders on the road, don't like the brakes. It's some of the or electrical issues. The number one problem, electrical issues. Yet it is, again, as we saw in here, okay, huge aftermarket is the #1 modified vehicle in the world. Meaning light bars, winches, ditch lights, custom light setups, all these different things they do to them, air compressors built into. Of course it's going to have electrical issues because most of those things are installed by backyard people like us that are not certified for that. They're not doing things right and they're going to mess stuff up, or they don't understand amperage and current and how things are going to be affected and they screw things up. It's common, but that will never be one of their problems. If there's an electrical issue, it will always be Jeep's problem. So I don't buy into the lack of reliability here, not even one little bit. None of that stuff matters to me. So, and that motor, like I said, is such a proven motor. So reliability wise, I say this one is fantastic. Reliability of this one wise, that motor has been proven. They've got most of the bugs worked out of this thing. I like the setup. I like what GM's done with it. And GM's got that amazing support system for their customers that they stand behind on such a great level. So realistically, I call the reliability about a wash straight between these two. And the real reason it's 100% a wash for me is because since everything now is going to turbos, and everybody has got supplier issues, and every company out there sucks at dealing with this stuff, and they all have recalls, my advice is always have this, an extended warranty, and I show you videos on how to get them for very good prices. But since you're going to have an extended warranty, reliability is a wash right down the board with either one of them. If anything happens, when I say extended warranty, that means that I'm going to sell it before 100,000 miles anyway. That's me. You want to keep it longer, keep it longer. I'm going to put a 5-year, 100,000 mile warranty on it, and I'm going to, it's just going to be, it's part of the deal. Plain and simple. It'll go on either one. I already have it on this one. Cost me $1,270 for a Mopar one. I won't own another vehicle from 2024 and beyond without having an extended warranty, and it's really not vehicle specific. It's because of the manufacturers, and I don't trust the crap that all of them are doing. So extended warranty means that the reliability is no longer an issue for me whatsoever, so that's not even a concern or a care. Resale value on both of them is going to be phenomenal. Okay, Jeep Wranglers and Gladiators have always held very strong resale value. The standard Colorado is going to hold pretty good because it's still new, not quite as great as some other ones, but because of the fact that it is a ZR2, I have a feeling that it's going to hold its value a lot better than like a Trail Boss or a Z71 is my thought. But I'm going to call them about a wash too, because even though this has really good resale with some of the discounts they've been running last year, and hopefully it happens again for us this year, that might affect that a little bit. So I'm calling them, as far as resale, they too are a straight up wash. So realistically, we're talking a very tough choice here. Very tough. That's why I had this one on order. It's amazing. That's why I also canceled this one and went with this one, was because of the price. I got it for about the same. I was here and I got it for almost the same price. Couple grand less on the Rubicon that I got versus what I had at $47.5 on this one. But I canceled that and went to this to give this one more year to get where it is. But the main thing was all of the off-road side of this is just got a little more to work with on the off-road side and a little bit more robustness because of that solid front axle and the way it's built than this. But like I said, so if you're spending a massive amount of your time is off-road like mine is, this might be better. If you're more on-road and weekend warrior hunting and going and doing some hardcore off-road, but on a smaller percentage of your weekly drive is off-road and more of it is on-road, this one's got so much benefit there too. So it is a very, very tough choice. Here's the true answer though. You can't go wrong with either one of them. And if I was buying a mid-size truck today, going out to buy a brand new one, it is this choice here between these two that is my biggest battle. Not the Raptor. The Raptor's amazing, don't get me wrong. That Ford Raptor Ranger is amazing. But it's not quite for me. This is my world right here between these two. And honestly, if I can make the numbers work, it's going here again, time and time again. Now, don't get me wrong. I want that. That is the sexiest truck out there, and I straight up love it. But because, again, the fact that I spend, if I drive 500 miles a week, 300 miles of them are off-road. Okay, so that's more time off-road for me than actually on-road. So that's very important to me. Where if I was here and I was driving 300 miles a week on the road and 200 miles a week off-road, this might matter more. But this one kind of wins for me right now. How is it for you? What do you think? Which one are you going to buy? Which one are you most interested in? There are things, again, we tried to leave out a lot of the personal stuff. You may think this is super ugly and hate it. You might think this is super sexy and love it, but you might have had bad experience with Chevy before and you don't want this. Your neighbor's sister's brother's uncle may have had a Jeep that had a tire go flat once, so now you think they're the worst vehicle in the world and you don't want to buy one. There's all these variables. Where do you stand? What do you think? How does this all relate to what you're after? Let me know in the comments down below. And as always, thanks for watching. See you soon.